Now, good evening. I think we can start. That was, I think, very, very wonderful ending. So, yesterday we made various predictions. We assessed the situation, our live for yesterday. So, the prediction that we made yesterday was that the court was going to lift the conservatory orders which were issued by the High Court in Kerugoya, and then refuse to put in place another conservatory order, which was sought by the team of the deputy president. So today, that prediction has come to pass. We've seen the court making arguments that we made in our yesterday's live. So if you watched us yesterday, then you would realize one thing: that we spoke about the issue of public interest, and we said that public interest would weigh in favor or go in favor of the respondents. That is the team of the Attorney General's team, the National Assembly's team, and that of the Senate. So that has come to pass. It's very important that that has come to pass. And for those, this is more or less a continuation of what we discussed yesterday, because yesterday we were making predictions and trying to analyze how the court would make a decision of this nature. In fact, if you could remember, we raised, we pointed to strong points by both advocates, but we ended up saying that the court would not proceed and put in place a conservatory order, stopping the assumption of stopping Kindiki from assuming the office of the deputy president. So right now, we are at that place where now we really need to ask ourselves, what next for the now former deputy president Rigathi Gachagua? What next for Rigathi Gachagua? It's a deep question. I think it's a deep question that must now bother the minds of his political advisors, in as much as it will prick the minds of his legal team. Because his hopes now, if you look at it, the hopes that he had placed in court, right now I believe that that hope is dwindling as really fast. So there are two things that have happened today. One, they moved to the Court of Appeal to challenge the decision by the High Court, which had said that it is properly constituted, that it was properly constituted by the DCJ. So while making the application, they also said, or rather sought from that very court to stay the proceedings in the court below, that is the High Court. So they wanted the Court of Appeal to issue orders stopping the proceedings in the court below. So that is a strategy. which I think if it would have been a success, it would have really given him a bit of a lifeline in terms of his strategy. Because in a case of this nature, the only thing that now he has to cling on is dragging and dragging and dragging. He has to really have to find ways to drag this matter. But from what we are now seeing is that even the courts, the judiciary itself, does not want this matter to stay within the system that long. And two, it does not want to have a scenario where there is a bit of uncertainty as to what is actually going on. And today, we've realized that the High Court has reiterated what really the Constitution provides. So if you remember in our yesterday's live, we spoke about the issue of whether or not the former deputy president was still in office as at the point they were making those arguments, or even as at the point of yesterday. So the issue, whether or not that office was vacant or somebody was in that office, which somebody should be regarding Gachagua, that question has now been answered today. Because you find the submissions which were being made by his team was that he's still in office on account of the Kerugoya conservatory order. But then the court has considered that issue, and in fact, in its ruling, you could see in the court's mind that office was vacant and has been vacant from the point the vote was taken to impeach the deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua. Now, what we have is a deputy president designate who now is well poised to take office. There is no longer anything that is preventing the swearing in of Professor Kithure Kindiki. So many things are still ongoing. The case itself is not over because we've not reached at the meat of the case, which is the petition itself. The argument with respect to that case would still be pending in court, but we could see the deputy president's team trying to really fight the outcome of that ruling. And the prediction that we were making, and I believe many of you would agree, is that when a court considers a petition of that nature, the issue of public interest, meaning the court would not really be concerned so much strictly on strict application of the law. So you could see even the mood of the court, if you've been following it keenly, there was a point where they said when you're interpreting the Constitution, then there are other issues which are non-legal, which have to come into play before you can say to have given the interpretation of the Constitution that is reasonable. Because sometimes if you stick strictly, then you end up having a court which is more of an activist court. And I think the court wanted to avoid that issue where now it is coming in between two fighting institutions. So in this instance, we have the executive through the president having appointed and nominated Kindiki, and we have parliament having approved that. And then you have a deputy president who also forms part of this executive and wants to challenge this decision. So basically the court was saying it would rather that political disputes are handled or by politicians themselves. Let those issues be handled by politicians. But it went ahead to suggest that the issue before it was justiciable, meaning that there are legal issues that arise from it that the court must entertain without necessarily going into the political fights that is now currently between the DP's team and that of the National Assembly, the Senate, and the Attorney General. Because the underlying issue here is the politics at play. So the court wanted to really avoid the politics at play, and that is why it allowed the politics to play itself. Allowing or refusing to issue a conservatory order is allowing the politics to play, with a warning that in the event it finds the whole process to have been unconstitutional, then it can declare it to be so unconstitutional. So then the approach that the court took is, if you consider, is the most reasonable one. And the argument by the court is this: that the office of the deputy president cannot be left vacant. That at no particular point that office should be left vacant. But then you can argue from the other side, and the argument was also made in court, is that we do have, the constitution contemplates a situation where this office can remain vacant for at least 74 days, when the previous holder having been impeached. So then if you make that argument, then the question comes in, where now a nominee is now in place and has been voted in, do you still need to wait for the lapse of all those days in order to proceed and swear it in? In the mind of the court, it felt not quite. It felt that once a nominee has been vetted, once a nominee has been elected and voted upon by Parliament, then they can proceed, and the government can just proceed and have that particular person sworn in as the deputy president. Now we have Kindiki being sworn in. Now, what really now is Gachagua's position? What really is he going to do? Now, yesterday I spoke about the fact that when the court is going to lift that conservatory order and eventually refuse to grant another conservatory order, then perhaps 60 to 70%, it is likely that Rigathi Gachagua's political career could be over. And that is why I kept on saying, if you looked at our yesterday's live, the video that we put out, we considered the fundamental mistakes that he made in the course of these political shenanigans. He made various fundamental mistakes, one of which was that he should have resigned at some point to arrest the process, but he stood there and placed his hopes in the courts that they would somehow make a decision returning him as the deputy president. So far, everything is going against him. And I don't know who are his political advisors or even legal advisors. But if you consider some of the serious minds that are in his team, perhaps they may have given him that kind of advice and he ignored, which is now it is now a glaringly erroneous move that he made. Because right now what he's faced with a long political, perhaps a long political darkness. So he's more likely to bury himself for a move that he should have avoided at the stage of the impeachment hearing. He shouldn't have let this thing to go up to the hearing stage. Be that as it may, that happened. And therefore, I do not see what they are still doing now is that they've placed so much hopes in now the Court of Appeal. I don't know. I believe that is also not going to help them. We saw also today his advocates making several applications after that ruling, applications which were made orally. The court went for 30 minutes, came back and ruled on the same, saying the ruling that we'd given earlier is detailed enough and covers all these things, and therefore we cannot give the orders that you are seeking. So basically the court refused to grant the orders injuncting the Professor Kithure Kindiki from assuming office. So in my view, I believe that once Kindiki assumes office, there is no going back. Gachagua has to look, because now, what has happened today is that the mojo in this case has been removed completely. Then you can actually ask yourself, why is he still fighting? What is it really that is there to fight for? Are you really fighting for that in the event they find it to be unconstitutional, then they can bring me back? I cannot see that scenario happening. It is a possibility in law. It is a possibility. It is something that you can say, no, the court has the authority to bring him back. But do you really think that the court is going to allow him to come back? I think they're going to find ways, and I made this argument yesterday, that once Kindiki is sworn into office, the court is going to find ways to validate the impeachment process. If you feel that, if you're watching us and you feel that the court may still bring him back to office, I would like to know why you feel so. You can leave a comment. Or even pose a question. I would like to know, what reasons do you have for holding such a view? Because for me, the political aspect of it would outweigh any other outcome other than the court finding that he was validly impeached. The court would not want to interfere with the political structure, or the once now somebody has assumed office, you don't want to interfere with that structure. You don't want to destabilize or make a decision that would now again create an uproar or destabilize the whole structure of government. You'd want things to just go the way they are, to take their own natural way, evolve by itself. Now, Gachagua is basically now is done. That is the truth. What remains of him is he'll be going to churches, he'll be making appearances. Right now, I think it could possibly be, is still a hotcake in the political framework, but so many people are going to use and misuse his situation to advance their own political goals as against the president. And that is going to happen mainly in Mount Kenya. So not so many people you see there are actually happy, are actually sad that he's been impeached, or that the court has given the orders that it did, or that Kindiki is now coming on board. No. So many people you see there are possibly happy that Rigathi Gachagua has been impeached. The reason why I'm telling you this is this. Rigathi Gachagua as a person is more of a bully. And bullies generally, he may have his support within or his base, who turned out to be so angry with the manner in which he was treated. And therefore, people do not want to scare those people or to be at variance with those people. So that is why you find people like Ndindi Nyoro, they kept away from the whole process. They wanted to have, allow the process to go on without necessarily making a comment or contributing to it. But I don't think Ndindi Nyoro is sitting somewhere and, saying that it is sad. Otherwise, if it was so bad, then Ndindi Nyoro should have spoken out. If the whole process was so bad and he felt that no, he shouldn't be impeached, why is he not speaking? He has to speak. If he's against it, a leader, which he claims to be, has to take a stand. So for us, you could also see there was a situation with Babu. Babu spoke out. He said, no. For me, the most important thing right now is dealing with the issues that are pressing to Kenyans, the economic issues that are pressing to Kenyans, and not impeaching the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. You would expect that from any leader who did not participate and who the people are calling for to hear their views on what was going on at that particular time, or what has been going on since. But Kindiki is there. Not really Kindiki. Ndindi Nyoro is there. He's not spoken. The last time we saw him, however, we saw him with Osoro while they were going into some sort of retreat. He was happy, was talking with them, meaning he's still in the corner of the president, but did not want to speak for the deputy president or against how he was treated. So you've seen some of the people speaking for and against for the deputy president and against the impeachment process. So if one is silent, that is the most dangerous person. In fact, the person who keeps silent at a time like this, I wouldn't consider such a person a leader. It is a strategic move, but leaders tend to take risks. So you could see somebody like Ichung'wa. Ichung'wa took a risk. It is a big, huge political risk that he took because he put his political career on the line by supporting the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua. And you could see right now, I think there are so many people who do not like how he was the one who championed this whole process against the DP Rigathi Gachagua. And is taking a slack for it. But when you sit on the fence, you don't want to speak, but you're still working with this same government, it shows that you're a coward. It shows that you're a coward. And I don't think a leader like Ndindi Nyoro should have taken that kind of a stand. He should have supported at least a particular side or spoken. He could have spoken his mind about what was going on. He did not. And that, I think, even the other side, Ruto, I think, is looking at him and feels like, no, you did not stand with me during my time of need. And therefore, I cannot also trust you with some of these really weighty government issues. So then, is the essence is that his political career is done. So it would be like someone like Waititu and someone like that, and now we have the new kid on the block. What is Kithure Kindiki going to do for President Ruto? Now, this is a very important one. For me, I feel someone with the demeanor and of Professor Kindiki is one suited for a deputy president for so many reasons. One, that is a person who does not speak so much. He is a person who knows, and I believe he will, knows his place. He is a person who is completely subordinate, perhaps, to the president. And I believe that is the kind of a person that any president, the people may not like him as a deputy president, but the president likes a person who is likely not to challenge him. So if you could hear some of the things that the deputy president spoke about, he said that he's the only person in cabinet who can challenge the president. So you really have to consider all those things, because when he's speaking about challenging the president, we don't know how or the nature of the challenge you are talking about. Is it criticizing the president or telling the president not to do something, or outrightly sabotaging the president in execution of his mandate? So it's not necessarily that the president himself is, or whatever the president is doing is good, no. But any president would want a person who is subservient, a person who knows their place. So when you hear some of the things that have happened, or the deputy president, former deputy president himself admitted to have done during these meetings with the president and other cabinet secretaries, then you realize this marriage was one that was going to fail from the point go, because we had these two strong characters, similar actually characters, coming together to form a government. And then the government itself now appeared to be having two co-presidents. So one president, perhaps that is in the form of Rigathi Gachagua, was now advancing the cause of just one particular region, and at the same time, and another trying to unite. Because I believe, and it is not something that is only that only Gachagua has done. Even Ruto, when he was with Uhuru Kenyatta, he only championed the cause of Rift Valley. He rarely championed the cause of the whole of Kenya. So then that is where you realize that politics can be a very unforgiving, and you can say, no, it is an injustice, it is unfair that things that Ruto did not lead to his impeachment, but the very things have led to the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua. That is what life is. The unfairness of life come about in that manner. And I think so many people are angered, not so much because Rigathi Gachagua is certainly a good man, no, but I think they are angered because they believe that he has not been treated so well by the system. Because if you look back, you feel like some of the things that they are accusing him of and are the things that others are also liable for. So some of the things that is done or is accused of having done, Ruto did them long before Rigathi Gachagua. So right now, what we are waiting for Kindiki to take office. We want to see how Kindiki and Ruto are going to run this government. Whether the government is now going to calm the political temperatures that are currently rising, or we are going to have more and more politics. I do not expect to be a lot of us against the new deputy president when he assumes office. I believe his first point would be to visit his home, perhaps so that he can galvanize the region and try to be the new kingpin. And such people, we say, such philosophers, people who you don't see them to be kings, they end up becoming king. But who knows? Professor Kindiki might have just positioned himself to be a president in future. Holding that office makes him now a complete national figure. So he can use that office in his support for Ruto and in his support for the policies that the government is going to do, to also sell himself in a manner that does not contradict the positions of government. So for him, I think he has a good opportunity. I think Rigathi himself had that opportunity, but it was too rash. He took things, he didn't know how to handle this much power. So he was too rash, too arrogant. He did not know how to deal with power. He did not know how to speak to people, and I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and that is why so many of the MPs were so happy to see him go. Someone like Kindiki, I believe, is someone who understands power, is learned. He's been to places. Is a person, I think, who watu wenye tunasema uongozi inawatafuta. So someone like Kindiki is someone like that. Uongozi inamtafuta. So if you consider his nature, the nature of Kindiki and the nature of Uhuru Kenyatta, you'd find them to be more closely related. People who are just quiet, there is some leadership you see in them. They don't yap a lot. They don't make a lot of noise. So such kind of people tend to be more amiable, tend to be more acceptable to both sides of the divide. You'd find people who are so extremely hateful, and I think that is one thing you could say about Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga is one who is, people who hate him so much, and people who love him also love him so much. So someone like Uhuru Kenyatta is someone who is, you don't have really people who love him so much. You just have people who look at him and say, no, this is a caring guy, so he can win over all these people. And that is why Uhuru Kenyatta, he became president. And when he was in 2022, I think he thought he could ask the Kikuyus to vote for Raila. And they said, no, we are not going to vote for Raila. So you could see, he didn't have these people following. He could actually just dump on Raila and tell them, no, have these votes now. So Raila has that kind of a following. So if Raila says, no, we are voting Kalonzo or we are voting Ruto, then he has the kind of a following who will just follow without questioning. Why are we voting Ruto and not Kalonzo Musyoka? So that is the kind of thing, and that is the kind of I believe when you look at Raila and Ruto and Gachagua, they are more or less cut from the same cloth. They are people who have mastered this art of speaking to others so robustly and so strongly and with, vim and zeal, that they raise a lot of emotions. So these kind of people tend to be very astute politically. They tend to be very good because they know how to speak to the crowd, and therefore, uh, him not knowing how to handle power or using that office in order to galvanize and cultivate support across Kenya is one thing I believe which has destroyed one, I believe, of the most of a bright political career. What would have been of Brigadier Gachagua? You know, he had the tongue to do whatever it is, but now his acts have led to an early political death. And now we have Kindiki, a completely different person with Rigathi Gachagua coming over. I hope things will be good. I do wish him well as a person. I hope God give him the grace to act as a deputy president in that office and also to serve Kenyans. It is not that I'm not saying that he is the right candidate to be there. No, I'm merely saying that by the virtue that he was being appointed as Kenyans, we have to come together and possibly wish him well to succeed in that endeavor. That, my friends, would mark the end of our live today. I would wish to see your comments. If you're watching it and you're yet to subscribe to our channel, do kindly subscribe. We normally do these lives on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays. Do have a lovely evening. Till next time.